and welcome to another edition of Raptors Today. Randy Urban filling in for Akil Augustine. Pleasure to be joined by Eric Smith and Sherman Hamilton. How are you, fellas?
Doing well.
I'm great.
Great. You're saying that like he's not great.
No, I'm just telling you how I am. I'm not speaking for anybody else.
No, but you're alluding to Eric.
There is a bit of a tone in his voice.
I'm not alluding to anything.
I'm
speaking for this person. His name is Sherman Hamilton, and Sherman Hamilton is great.
And he looks great.
Who does?
I always make Sherman uncomfortable.
I don't know who you're
That's
talking
what
about.
I do on this show.
I don't mind that. I don't mind that.
I'm not uncomfortable.
All right, the Raptors
You're
got it
weird,
done. What?
Nothing.
Big game, big win against the Golden State Warriors. Of course, there was a packed house with Steph being in town. The Raptors pulled it out in the fourth. Eric, what did you like the most about the execution down the stretch?
I think it's the fact that it appeared as though they've learned from some of their mistakes, and there have been a lot of mistakes over the course of this year. But if we look at the way that this team has played of late, even this last road trip, there were building blocks, I think, in place and a lot of tight games. And to finally be able to punch through, I think one of the things that really stood out more than anything is the recognition of trying to find the hot hand and ride it, whether that's the coaching staff staying with Chris Boucher, whether that's guys on the floor looking for Chris, and just the execution overall. We had a chance to talk to Jakob Poeltl on our little mini postgame show on the radio broadcast, and he was saying just that, the execution that we showed down the stretch and just kind of staying locked in, not turning the ball over and having each other's backs. And sometimes that can become cliche, but I think the Raptors actually did it last night, and you could feel that there was just a sense of being that much more focused than we've maybe seen in other times. Like, it didn't feel like it was going to slip last night like we felt so many other times.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought to that point it was the defensive side of the basketball where they stayed consistent. Davion Mitchell played Steph Curry a certain way and then got into a bit of foul trouble, and then Ochai came in and did a very good job. A bit bigger, more athletic, had a bit more range, but they executed defensively and made sure that if they were going to lose, it wasn't going to be because of Steph Curry. And to me, when you stay locked in on that side of the basketball, it can kind of help you when you're going to turn the ball over, if you're going to miss free throws, if you're going to have empty offensive possessions. If defensively you can stay locked in. You look at the Detroit game, similar thing. Defensively, they lost people. Defensively, they made mistakes down the stretch, and they lost the game. It's not like Detroit were world beaters. Better team, but not world beaters. And I think because they executed defensively, and then they had this guy named Chris Boucher, who we'll talk about later, but he was on fire, and they, to Eric's point, kept feeding the hot hand. Got on the ball, but defensively is where I think they made their strides.
Yeah, we really can't talk about how they won this game without talking about Chris Boucher. He was a main catalyst, of course, and he's been that way for the last little while. Eric, what do you think has gone into making him so uber effective lately?
I don't know if I have a great answer for you.
We'll just end it there. No, I'm just kidding.
Honestly, I think any theory that we throw out right now would be applicable. But to me, it's a guy that, before the game, Steve Kerr talked about how well Chris Boucher has done in his career since they had him in Golden State and predominantly with Santa Cruz down in the G League, and the professionalism that he shows as a shot blocker, to Sherm's point, on the defensive end, but as a spark on the offensive end as a three-point shooter. And the guy is, we've seen for years now, for 3/4 of a decade, is unconscious. There's not a shot that he doesn't like or that he isn't willing to take. But I think in this role that he has right now with this team, I've used this line a million times over the years. I think he now knows his role, yes, but accepts his role. He knows what he is. He knows what he needs to be for this team. And now that the team has finally gotten a little bit healthier and there's definition of that role, he's thriving in that.
I want to ask you this, Sherm, because there was a stretch mid-November to mid-December where he wasn't making any threes. He was 4 for 31, which is like 13%. And since then, I wrote it down, he's 25 for 43, up to 58% in that stretch from December 19th to now. How does that happen? And what goes into sort of changing that as a player?
Well, to add to your numbers, the last 4 games, I think he's shooting around 78%
Yeah.
from three. It's just continually gone up. So, early in the year, we had a show and we talked about Chris Boucher. And one thing I said about him was that he's gotten better. His skill set has gotten better. His ability to make plays, his decision-making has gotten better. He worked on his game. And this, to me, kind of encapsulates what I think of him. And I said this on the broadcast last night. Chris Boucher is a true professional. Consummate pro from the perspective of he might not be a part of the plan for 3-4 games, But when you put him in the game,
He's ready.
He's ready to go, and he's going to produce. It might not always be shooting, as you said, he went through that drought, but he's going to defend, he's going to rebound, he's going to run the floor. He's going to provide energy. And what's the job of a bench player? To maintain or raise the level when you hit the floor. He's been exceeding the level. And to me, that just speaks to him as a true pro, understanding his role and not sulking about it, but saying, when I get my chance, I'm going to put it out there.
It's one thing to be a regular bench player, Sherm, like you were just saying, to come in every game, but how hard is it to do that, what he's been doing, to miss 2 or 3 games, not being part of the program for those games, and then coming in? Like, that's even more difficult than being a bench player every game.
I think it's a mentality.
Yeah.
I think it's an understanding of, number one, what you have to do to be successful. No matter what happens in this league, when your number's called, there's no excuse to not perform.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Boucher understands that. And if anybody had a reason to really hang their head and be upset, it could be him. We not only saw this in this era, even coaches before. Chris Boucher has been kind of cast aside, and when he's hit the floor, everybody asks, well, why wasn't he playing? Because of what he can do. So this is not his first rodeo going through this, but what I love about what he's doing is the consistency, the unshaken determination that he can be a positive impact, and he just does it. And he's not going to change who he is. And I think that's the beautiful thing about what he's doing.
And you're courtside doing the radio. You see this too. The guys love him.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, he's coming off the court, and they're embracing him.
I think what they love, clearly, not just the production on both ends of the floor, but it's the steady attitude as well. Like, he doesn't seem to get overly high for the highs or way too low for the lows. He is just steady. Same stoic look on his face more times than not. And I think that is also infectious in a sense that you know that the guy is grounded and he's playing under control. And I think guys can feed off that, just knowing that. It's almost like there's an expectation from Chris that, yeah, this is what I do.
And when your nickname is Slim Duck,
Yeah.
you're going to be pretty cool.
I was worried about the roof coming off. If he would have made that last one from the corner, that would have put them up by 6 with about 10 seconds to go. That would have been crazy. But
Yeah, but just speaking to the energy of what he's doing,
yeah.
there's a possession. RJ came down, turned the ball over. Another possession, he came down. He lost the ball.
Yeah.
Chris Boucher's constant movement, and we're talking about the synchronicity of when things are going the way they're supposed to go, the rhythm of the game. Chris Boucher, it's almost like he cut, knowing that ball was going to pop loose because
Right.
RJ didn't pass it to him, and it was almost a direct pass for a layup late in the game.
Yep.
Those are the kind of things that the game gives you when you're in that space that Chris Boucher's in.
Yeah. Great stuff, guys, as always. All right, we're going to listen to Chris Boucher after the game now.
Chris, you've obviously been on a roll lately, but in losses, how cool is it for you to have a moment like this, especially at home in a win?
I think it's good. It helped for the spirit. I think we've been working extremely hard together to, find ways to get better. And we got a couple of good games where we, played through 3 quarters and not get the win. So to get the win feels really good. And we're just gonna go back to the film and figure out what we did good and how we could sustain that.
When you come in and you hit your first couple threes, what's it feel like?
Obviously, right now it feels really amazing. When I get the ball, it feels like I'm at the right place. It's the right shot. But it's also making the reads. I think I'm doing a lot better making the reads, not just shooting the ball, having a drive, making a pass, knowing when to take a shot or not. I think that's really helping me right now, and it's keeping me in a good groove where I know where my shots are coming from.
Did something in the process change in terms of that, or was it like recognition on film? Or?
Yeah, film. I think being patient. I think that's one thing that I needed a little bit more. Being patient with the ball, knowing that it's not just the shot that moving the ball is gonna come back to you. And we got a lot of guys on this team that could score the ball. So just being patient, knowing where to be, and guys like Scotty, Davion, Jamal, they great passes. They find you. So just being there and being ready.
Welcome back to Raptors Today. Randy Urban with Eric Smith and Sherman Hamilton, talking about the big Raptors win over the Golden State Warriors. Let's talk a little bit about RJ Barrett. He had 15 points, but he did it on 14 shots yesterday. He just does not seem to look like his self from a few weeks ago.
I think it's health more
Yeah.
than anything. He missed 5 of 8, and trying to battle back from whatever illness was kind of ailing him for that time. And I just think it's gonna. There's a couple things going on, in my opinion. First is the health. I think that's number one on the list. But then as he's trying to work himself back into the lineup and back into a healthy, hopefully, mindset and physical stature and everything else, you also have the team starting to get healthier and now trying to, and I know Quickly missed last night, but it's trying to find your role and your lot within the hierarchy of Quickly and Barnes and Pirtle and him and Grady and and I think it's taking time for everybody to kind of adjust to that. And I think that to me is those two answers kind of tell the story. Hopefully it starts to turn sooner than later.
How difficult is it to find that sort of synchronicity with the other players during games, because they don't get a lot of practice time at this part of the season?
Yeah, I mean, they could speak to it. I think that the phase they're in right now, where we saw 4 games of the Emmanuel Quickly, Scotty Barnes, and RJ on the floor at the same time, it's not enough to get an understanding of who they are and what they can be. And in that adjustment phase, there's adjustments. And the residual impact is guys like Grady, guys like Jacoby Walters, guys that around that core 3 have to adjust. But for RJ, when Emmanuel wasn't on the floor and Scotty wasn't on the floor, he was a primary ball handler, primary decision maker. And when those reps are taken away, there's a gradual phasing into how to figure out what to do when certain players are on the floor.
Yep.
But when you have all 3 of those guys on the floor, there just hasn't been enough runway to figure out who they are. And for RJ, to Eric's point about being sick, having to adjust from that, and then having to adjust to the group, and now having to adjust to Emmanuel not there in their last game, a lot of moving parts. But this is why they're the best players in the world. They got to figure these things out. And I'm sure RJ will. He's struggling, and it's no surprise that a guy that scores the basketball goes through a bit of a scoring drop. That's not unusual, especially with all the fluctuation. So I think he'll get back to who he is. It's just that whole adjustment phase is just an ongoing thing throughout the course of this season.
That's what makes players great, is being able to pick those spots, right, and when to do what to do. Speaking of turning it around, or just nobody thought Jamal Shead coming into this year was going to be a 3-point threat. I guess you thought about his defense, you thought about his pushing the pace offensively, but this guy's made 8 of his last 9 threes, Eric. He's really turning into a pleasant, a great backup point guard.
Yeah, I said last night, with no disrespect intended to Fred VanVleet or no disrespect to Jamal Shead, to the point you just made, Randy, I don't think a lot of people going into the season were expecting, from the fan standpoint at least, to be talking about Jamal Shead at basically the midway point of the season. And I'm saying, I bet you there's some people thinking, can I get a nameplate to put just Shed on the back of my old Van Vliet jersey? Can I still go out there and find a multi-purpose for this? Because he's become a fan favorite already.
A little too early for that. Okay.
I think he's become a fan favorite.
Right.
I think he's become. I mean,
For
look
sure.
at, no disrespect also to Davion Mitchell. He started last night because of no Emmanuel Quickly, but otherwise he's been sort of leapfrogged in many senses in the rotation by the rookie because of how well he plays defensively, almost as tenacious as you get from Davion Mitchell, but a better, arguably, offensive player because of what you just brought up. The three-point shooting, his ability to score is, I think, at least a tick, if not a couple of ticks higher than what we've seen from Davion Mitchell. And I've got all the time in the world for Davion and what he's done. So I think this is a huge bonus for the Raptors, and it speaks to what we often talk about, the maturity of a 4-year guy at university who comes ready for the NBA, as opposed to a young guy that's still learning and cutting his chops because he didn't play more than a year or two at the collegiate level. Jamal Shead's a man ready to go.
Is that the difference, Sherm?
I'm sure that's a big part of it. I mean, he's been coached. He's been in a lot of situations as a collegiate player. He's had success. All of those help mature you on and off the court. So no doubt his years in college helped. But also when you think about players, outside people tend to want to judge a player based on his worst abilities. The player will look at themselves in their best stretch and say, that's who I am.
Yeah.
So somewhere in between is where he is. Now, he's not going to shoot the ball this well, but you best believe he felt he wasn't shooting the ball as well as he could before this stretch. So to me, Jamal Shead is number one, getting opportunity, which is huge, and he's taking great advantage of it. But he did it the right way. He got it off the defensive end, and now he's getting his offensive opportunities. So I love his approach. And now he's created confidence, and confidence breeds comfort. And when you're more comfortable, you can now do things that you know you can do. So his shot is going to come along. He's worked on it. It's going to happen at some point. And as long as he keeps on doing those things, he's going to get his opportunity. But I love what he's done in terms of really carving out a niche. Even though it's a losing season, he's made sure that he's a part of this process right now, and I tip my hat to him.
Yeah, and when you think about just him and Boucher, you got some real solid bench scoring there on a season where we didn't always see that this year. And I think they had 40 points last night coming off the
And I
bench.
want to just shout out Ochai.
I was just going to say, he has taken his game to another level this year, right?
Think about last season when we thought about Ochai, the question was, can he make a shot consistently? He's answered that resoundingly well.
Ochai shot 21% from 3 as a Raptor last year.
And I'm saying what he's done this year with his shot is just a testament to a young man that says, I understand what I need to do to get better.
Yep.
Went into the lab in the offseason, worked his tail off, got the job done, and now when the lights are on, he's showing it. And don't forget, he already had defensive elements that were great.
Yep.
He already had the athleticism, which we're seeing consistently. Now that shot is there, I think he's done a great job really showing what he can do when he starts to put things into his game.
Yeah, to go from 21% from 3 to up over 40% this year is
phenomenal.
That's just a guy putting in work. All right, it's time to listen in on Jamal Shead and RJ Barrett.
Speaking of making shots, what's it been like watching Chris over these last few games?
Chris Boucher. It's cool to see because we know that he can do that. And it's good for kind of the whole world to be seeing it. But just happy for him.
How contagious? I mean, obviously, he comes into the game, it's like he's been shot out of a cannon. How contagious is that as a teammate being out there with him, that energy?
Oh no, for sure. It brings a different sort of energy to the group, but that's why we're a team. That's why we're a team. It's everybody. A lot in that first half, especially too. Like Ochai came out and gave us a spark. Jamal gave us a spark. And then in that fourth quarter, I think we were down 9. And Chris, he gave us that spark. So it's a whole entire team.
Other than Chris, what was the biggest difference that you saw the last few minutes of the game yesterday? It had been a while since you guys had closed out a tight one like that. What did you see last night, and how much does it help to be able to get over the hump in a game like that?
It felt good, especially I think this past week we've been playing good. We've been playing good and haven't come up with the wins at the end. So to be able to close that one out felt great for sure. Just a testament to our work and sticking with it.
It had been a while since you guys had closed out a close game like you guys did last night. What was the difference last night? What did you see in those last few minutes? And how much, from a morale standpoint, does that help you guys a boost to come out on the right side of one of those?
I think one big emphasis was Chris Boucher. CD laid a lot of big plays, not just his shots, offensive rebound, defensive rebounds, just flying around, just being active. And then, I think we're growing. Like I've said in multiple interviews and multiple media stuff, is just that, we're a young team, but we're always in those type of situations. So the more we can grow and the more, we learn from those situations, the better we'll get. You mentioned Chris. I mean, you're a pretty high energy guy yourself, but when you're out there with somebody like Chris who comes into the game, it looks like he's been shot out of a cannon, how contagious is that as a teammate? He made a joke, and I think we've been living by it since our third game, and he calls us Duracell. We're batteries, we get thrown in there, and we try to give everything energy and try to give everything a spark. So playing with him makes it a lot easier to just pick myself up and just, hey, he's giving energy, I got to give it too.
Hey, it's JYD. Thanks for watching the Raptors YouTube channel. Check out our latest videos and subscribe for more.
Fine. Taken away by the Raps. On the run. Fits to JYD. Beautiful pass. Chuck, one of the things I'm noticing about this part